I answer Corey Paskevich's question about leasing versus buying a car, and also answer my dad's question about the role social media plays in your brand. Hey everyone, Justin Spaulding here. Thanks for tuning in to the 9th episode of Ballin with Spauldin. If you could please share this video with one other person that you know that wants to build wealth and become a millionaire, please do so right now. Comment, subscribe to the channel, like, leave a question, because today we are answering 2 questions that we got. I mean, a real world example, of what we're talking about with social media and your brand is, for example, when I have a tenant and an applicant for one of my apartments, one of the things that I'm doing is I'm going to their Facebook or their Twitter and to see kind of what type of person they are. And I know people that are hiring, if they have a job opening, there's 2 close candidates, and even if there's one candidate that's far out and above the others, they still look them up on Facebook to see what type of profile they have, to see what type of people they're hanging around with, to see what their actions are like online, because that can really tell a lot about a person. And mark my words, I think over the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years, your social networks are going to determine whether you get a loan and at what interest rate. They're going to determine if you get a job, because all that stuff will just automatically calculate based on the type of posts you have and what you're saying in your posts and who your friends are and what they're posting. So it can really tell what type of crowd you're in to kind of judge, and it'll judge what kind of person you are. So I think as far as personal brand and for a business brand, it's super important to be very active, but also be very aware of the things that you're posting. Make sure that it's representing yourself, and you want it to be real, you want it to be authentic, but make sure it is the true, it's yourself. You shouldn't really post anything online that you're not going to say to someone's face, or that you wouldn't say to someone on the phone, to a customer or a follower on the phone. And so be aware, be cognizant of that. You also really want to give a lot of value through these social media, the social networks, and through social media, because it's got to be a give and take thing. You can't just expect people to follow you and like all of your stuff if you're not giving them what they want. So you have to be able to give them great content. You have to be able to interact with them, and it really comes down to, just like in real life, building a relationship with people in sales or in business. Being able to build a relationship with those people that follow you on your social networks, that means a lot, because when they're emotionally invested, and you can get them emotionally invested by building that relationship, that is, it takes a lot of hard work, but that's going to build your brand equity, and in the long run, help your business's bottom line, and that's really how you're going to see the return on investment when it comes to social media. So for what role social media should play when it comes to your brand, it needs to play a big role to capture a huge audience. But another thing to really take advantage of and think about is the age differences and where they're at in social media and what type of person you're trying to attract, because there's different demographics in every social media platform. And so being aware of that and being up to date on where your customers sit and where they're going to be over the next 2, 5, 10 years, so that you can kind of get ahead of the curve to build an audience, to be the first person there, so that when all your customers catch up and they're all on that platform, they're going to want to definitely follow you too. And in fact, you might be one of the very first people they follow on one of those platforms. Let's move on to the second question of the day. I definitely recommend leasing a car, and you can butt heads with so many people out there. Now, the reason that I got into my first lease just over a year ago, it was for a couple of reasons. And I'm always someone that looks at the cash flow, and I think cash flow is king. And so let me just also throw out there, I'm rolling super efficient as far as, I get great miles per gallon, and I didn't go extravagant. I'm rolling in a Ford Fusion, okay? So I know that my payments are very, very, very minimal compared to how much money that I'm making. I'm not spending a ton on a car. But I look to lease because of cash flow, and where I was at a year ago when I decided to lease was I kind of had a choice to make. If I bought, I was going to have a much higher down payment versus leasing. If I bought, my monthly payments were going to be a lot higher than leasing. And so from a cash flow standpoint, I wanted to be able to take that money that I would use to buying a car, and I wanted to basically be able to fix up my apartment buildings that I had, and there was some money that I had to stick into them to get the rents up to where I want them to be. And so my return on that investment by putting them into the apartment buildings, it just made sense for me to lease versus going out to buy a car. Also with leasing, I don't necessarily, at the end of the lease, I don't have to go out and worry about, am I going to buy it, am I going to hold on to it, am I going to, I don't have to worry about that when I'm done with this car. I have a lot more options, so I can just walk away from it, which I love the idea of being able to walk away, which is another reason why people should rent forever the house and the place they're living in, because you can just walk away if circumstances change. So I can always just walk away, I can trade it in, I can take it over and buy it at that point if I want. So there's just so many different options. Now with what I do, I'm super busy, so the one thing that does kind of hurt me is that last year I put 30,000 miles on my car. That doesn't really help the lease scenario, but I think even if I had to make that choice over again, there's no doubt in my mind that I would go back and lease that car and continue to lease in the future just because of that cash flow situation.